So look, we always thought there was a lot more to be found at Golden Eagle, not at Golden, at Oracle Ridge when we first started, and it looks like we weren't the only people to think that. This is a sign at the start of the Coronado National Forest, which is near where we are. So they certainly, other people seem to think. So some recent updates. We've had this discovery. We announced it yesterday. There's 2 prospective systems which we're quite excited about at a project called Golden Eagle. It sits about 2 kilometres to the east of our Oracle Ridge mine, and that's what hosts the existing JORC Resources, which is a skarn resource. This new area, gold grades up to 10.5 grams per tonne. Yesterday, we've announced that we've bolstered our land position as well. We've staked new claims at Golden Eagle, and we've also staked some more claims at Oracle Ridge Extension. We call it OREX, where we've had gold up to 3.6% copper as well. We started drilling in September last year, looking to expand the existing skarn resources. Look, I think we had some really good results there. We've been stepping out sort of 40 to 50 metres at a time. We brought on a 2nd rig, and now recently we brought on our 3rd rig and transitioned to full-time drilling. So that 3rd rig came on in July. So the team's really getting a whole lot bigger. Here's some of the team that you can see over in Arizona. It's certainly getting to be a pretty big crew. We have had some delays, and we've had some slow assay results coming through, which has been pretty unfortunate. July was the wettest month ever in Tucson's history. And at the moment, the area's got the 3rd wettest monsoon in history. So it's been a really, really wet couple of months for us, which has been frustrating. That's resulted in a lot more earthworks and some delays in the drilling, but a lot of it's lightning. We've got rigs sitting on the tops of hills or near hills, and that can really delay us. On the assay front, we've been really hampered by slow cutting. So we send our core to the labs to get cut, but we're now we purchased a core saw about 4 months ago. And with COVID, everything's taken so much longer to get in to anywhere at the moment, but into the country. So that's planned to be arriving at the end of September. So that should certainly help expedite. We've had core sitting outside the labs, unfortunately, for a month, and now we've taken it to the 2 labs. We're trying to do everything we can to speed some of those labs up. But at the moment, we've got about, I need to double check with Fabio, I think it's about 18 holes which are waiting on assays. So it's certainly building up. And as soon as we get those, we'll be releasing those through to the market. So that's some of the recent updates. Just really quickly, this is where we are. We're near Tucson. This is elephant country. You get big systems. And this is partly why we get excited. So not only we know, this is a geological area. We're in the Laramide belt where you get big systems. So this is the potential for what we've got. It's not like this is a new area where it would be completely unexpected. This has the potential for it, and we're seeing really good ingredients for a system, which is what Fabio will run through now. This is why we're so excited. So a lot of the work, I'm not going to harp on this, we've been doing a lot of work, and we're not just been focusing on just the drilling. Whilst it's a priority for us to expand that existing resources, and that's what we want to do, we have had a lot of people out in the field doing geophysics. Magnetics has been a really good indicator for us, rebuilding lithology models, rebuilding structural models, all to help us underpin where we've got to be vectoring towards and drilling. We've drilled a few holes, so we've drilled 7 holes at Golden Eagle now, and that all really helps with that spatial distribution of where you are in a system with those vectors. So this is where we've been drilling at the moment. We've got 2 rigs sitting over at the mine. So we've got a mine here. There's 18 k's of underground development running through here. We've got 2 rigs. They're both currently in the central area. Have been drilling up in this northern area up here, if you can see where my mouse is, and that's doing the resource upgrade work. It was a fairly limited program to aim to get some of our indicated resources into the measured category, but at the moment in the southern area, we're doing step-out drilling to try and expand our inferred resource, which will later have to come back and do the infill drilling. So this is where we've had the rigs currently sitting, and they've been sitting along this trend. This is called Golden Eagle over to the right-hand side. This southern zone here is called Oracle Ridge Extension. And this is where along this leatherwood contact, this is where the sediments and the granites intersect. and that's on the lower side. On the upper side, we've been getting good mineralisation. On the lower side, this is where we had a lot of good outcrops, and we've picked up some more ground there too. A couple of quick photos. This was taken just yesterday. Some of our guys doing some underground scaling. We've got 18 kilometres of development. It's in great condition. It's not flooded. We've got one drive is flooded, but probably about 90% of it's in very good condition. Here's some photos of, this is a drill at Golden Eagle. You can see that it's been pretty wet there. Some of it has been even wetter. So the guys have done a really good job in the circumstances. It has been torrential. There's no doubt about it. To keep the rig going, to try and accelerate and expand your exploration efforts in the middle of the worst monsoon just about in the history of Tucson has been by no mean feat, that's for sure. But long years our drillers, and they've done a really good job. So look, I'm going to leave it at that. Certainly happy to take some questions. I'm going to hand it over to Fabio, who I'm sure you're more wanting to hear about than myself.
All right. So just a quick summary. I'll keep it brief, and I'll try to avoid the geological lingo if I can. But if you have any questions at the end of the presentation, please feel free. So we'll touch briefly on the location of Golden Eagle, review briefly the history, both clearly before our involvement and also what we have done in terms of exploration. I'll also detail some of the results of the exploration work, including information about the alteration systems and some of the details about those. And finally, I'll touch about the drilling that has been completed to date, and also the claim staking that we recently completed. So Golden Eagle, okay, so location-wise, you can see there on the slide in orange or yellow is the outline of the current mineral resource at Oracle Ridge. And just to the right of it, you can see the existing mine portal that gives us access to the mine. So Golden Eagle is located about 2 kilometers from the portal, so really convenient in terms of location. But also importantly, it actually sits along the main road that from San Manuel gets us to the mine. So literally, the area is actually bisected by the road itself. And importantly, again, just to the right here, you see that part of our land holding. That's where the historical tailings storage facility for the Oracle Ridge mine is located. So Golden Eagle is actually in between the mine and the historical location of the TSF. So clearly, a very good position. Also, compared to the mine itself, is actually a lower elevation, and the terrain is actually a bit easier as well compared to some of the steeper terrain we get at Oracle Ridge. Now, the question that would really come up, and clearly it's important to understand a bit of the background here, is what got us interested about Golden Eagle. Now, the main feature, if you want, of that area is highlighted with the red dot, and that's the Sanderson Mine. So the Sanderson Mine is a historical mine that was active in the first half of the 1900s. There is a shaft there, an inclined shaft. These are some public domain information that are available about the mine. So clearly small scale, but what is interesting is that we do have smelter returns, so actual records of production there, highlighting some pretty decent grades for modern standards. So 13.7 grams per ton gold, 22.3 grams per ton silver, and also a sniff of copper. And although the mine itself doesn't sit on our ground, clearly was really draw our attention to the area, thinking, so what is it? Why is it there? And I remember clearly the first discussions about this, saying, okay, is it part of the same system that we see at Oracle Ridge? Is it different? Is it older? Is it younger? So lots of questions, but really the idea was let's do some exploration work here. Let's try to find out what it is and see how it looks compared to Oracle Ridge. And that's why we embarked in the classical exploration that you do for what we consider, compared to Oracle Ridge, a bit of a more of a greenfield style exploration. Although clearly being so close to the mine, anything we find here potentially could become part of a larger system within the Oracle Ridge, also from a mining perspective. So we started compiling historical data sets. was a lot of information available about the area. And then we continued doing a geophysical survey program. So we flew a magnetic survey using a drone over this area, as well as the mine and OREX just to the south. And then we progressed that further with some geological mapping, and finally some sampling while the mapping was happening. So essentially, what we announced yesterday is the outcome of this exploration work, and I think the results were in a way surprising for us. We were not expecting as much action in the area, and that's why I think we made certain decisions about drill rig and also expanding the land holding in the area. But I'll talk about it a bit more later. The image itself is just an example of a very, very altered outcrop where we got some pretty good results from a sample that was taken just above the hammer, so 1.6 grams per ton gold and 10.3 grams per ton silver. And clearly, the numbers are important, but I think what got us really excited is just what we geologists call alteration. So the mineralogy here is really indicative of a system where fluids that potentially can carry metals have been through. That's what really got us excited here. Now I'll try to explain in a bit more detail what's interesting about the area. Now, if you look on the image, there are some east-west black lines. So those black lines are essentially faults. And I think most people familiar with the mining industry in Australia does know that faults are really important to localize mineralization. Classical example is the eastern goldfields of WA, where most deposits are close, if not on major faults. Now, the main fault we have in the area is the Gizman fault that you see there, clearly labeled. And then there's also a secondary fault called the Pigeon Tank fault. It strikes in a northwest, southeast direction. Now, one of the main results from the mapping we did was that on the northern side of this Pigeon Tank fault, you can see that there are a couple of orange-looking polygons there, and they show you basically where the alteration that I presented you in the previous image is more intense. So this area here shows a lot of alteration. It's an area about 450 meters wide by 200 meters. There's a lot of alteration that it's indicative of pyrite and also silica flooding. Now, pyrite is simply an iron mineral composed by iron and sulfur. And what's important about the mineral itself is actually the sulfur component, because a lot of mineral systems clearly are very rich in pyrite, and the sulfur is clearly important in transport of the fluid themselves. Now, the silica flooding is also important because it tells you about the scale of the alteration system that goes through. So essentially, what we are excited about is, along these structures that could be tapping fluids from deep down, we see a pretty substantial alteration system just on the northern side. And so that clearly was an attention-grabbing feature. And also, although there were not stellar results, there was actually quite a strong geochemical anomalism. So, for example, there's hundreds of parts per million copper in the area. There's also sniffs of gold. So nothing ore grade, but it's telling you that we have that alteration. That alteration could have been carrying some grade. So what we need to do really is to find where the alteration becomes more intense, and hopefully that's where the core of the system and the real mineralization is going to be found. So that's the first of the two alteration mineralization systems that we identified. The second one is actually just to the north of it, and you can clearly see in the image that there's a number of red dots trending in a northwest southeast direction. Now, these are higher grade samples, and what you see in the table on the left, a lot of the high grade come actually out of that trend where the high grade are. And initially we thought, well, that's interesting. It's really potentially associating with something, but we couldn't really figure out what the association was. We couldn't point to what was the geological reason for that alignment. And then as we were comparing different data sets, we identified that there's two features that actually match with that orientation. The first one is, again, roughly with the same orientation, there is a magnetic high. So a magnetic high is simply a result of the magnetic survey that we did. It's simply a way of measuring the Earth's magnetic field. And sometimes there are special minerals that can change the magnetic field in an area. And we are able to detect that change. And that's what basically the survey, the drone survey did. So we identified this trend, this magnetic high, and it matches really well with those high-grade assays in terms of the general orientation. And also there is a geological contact that you see with the dashed dot line, roughly with the same orientation. So we started thinking, wow, that's interesting. So we have high-grade samples, we have a magnetic anomaly, we also have a geological contact. And I think the icing on the cake on this was we realized that the Sanderson Mine itself, that you see there with the shaft symbol, sits smack bang in the middle of the trend as well. So we started to join the dots and think, well, this is very interesting. We have different data sets that are telling us the same story. So we should really follow this up, right? So in a nutshell, these are the two systems that got us excited. And clearly when an exploration geologist gets excited, he tries to do two things. The first one is roll the rig in, and that's what we did. And again, you can see there a nice photo of the rig drilling from the first pad. We have drilled 7 holes so far, and including some of the deepest holes we have done in the Oracle Ridge area. And we are currently drilling the eighth hole at Golden Eagle. We're testing extension to the Sanderson Mine, and we're also trying to see what happens to that alteration that we see at surface when we drill under it, basically, and the results are pending. Now, the second thing that an excited exploration geologist does is try to secure the land position, and that's what we did. So we staked 29 new claims in the Golden Eagle area, and you see them. I'm just roughly show you the outline of the claims of Golden Eagle. And we also, while we were there, we wanted to tidy up the land position even more. And we staked also 12 claims at the eastern end of the Oryx area, because there were some samples that we collected previously that fell just outside our ground. So we said, let's tidy it up. And now we have basically the entire geological feature that is controlling the mineralization at the mine and at the Oryx target, which is what we call the leatherwood sediment contact, is actually now entirely within our land holding. While we talk about the land holding, I just want to clarify a couple of things. So we control mineral rights everywhere where you see the pale gray. The darker gray is actually an area controlled by Pima County. And Pima County basically didn't really acquire this area. It landed on their lap after the previous owner didn't pay their taxes. So we have an agreement with Pima County. We can go in the area, we can do low disturbance exploration work. And that's why sort of some of the results we present in the announcement were taken from their land. We currently don't control the mineral rights over their area. There's also a couple of excised area that you see in white on the map, and those are basically single patented claims that are controlled by private parties that are not clearly under our control. Just to clarify the whole situation, what's exciting though is even some of the high-grade results, some of the alteration that we see outside our claim actually dips. So at depth seems to be continuing and entering our ground. And that's really what we have been testing with the drill holes since the beginning of July. So just to summarize, we identified 2 prospective alteration systems at Golden Eagle. There's a number of interesting geological features, including large regional faults that go through the area, which could represent a really good plumbing system for these mineralized fluids to come up. There's also clearly all that excitement pushed us to do two things: prioritize drilling at Golden Eagle, and that's what we've been doing since the beginning of July, and also trying to expand our land position in the area to secure some of these new areas where we saw alteration that were really open ground. So that's pretty much it. Closing off on an interesting comment from our managing director, Charlie Bass.
Well, thank you for that, Fabio. I might take a few questions. And again, I encourage participants to send through their questions via either the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen or via the chat function, but I will jump into it. So is the thought that this is an epithermal system? From what we're seeing, it doesn't look like an epithermal system. I'd say the main caveat to that is we have just started exploring in the area, and I think I always like to see things in the drill holes, and I think only really one hole has been in the center of the system itself. So we don't seem to see epithermal features at the moment, but no, I think we need to drill a bit more before excluding that. Thank you. And just another one, and Tim, feel free to jump in as well. So are you negotiating with Pima County over land access?
I could probably answer that one. Yeah, we've got a great relationship with Pima County. We've got an agreement with them at the moment for being able to have land access, and actually we're really quite appreciative that they've allowed us to do that. It's really helped us actually get to the position that we've got to so far. So yeah, look, absolutely, you know, it's subject to results and where the drilling goes to. It could be a good you know, land holding to acquire for sure. You know, we'll have to work through that with them. You know, it's a pretty obvious one if, you know, certainly the results are positive.
There's another one that just come through. So you've drilled 7 holes now with no assays to confirm anything. And why are you so confident you have something to continue to drill 7 holes?
So I think, as I mentioned during the presentation, Golden Eagle was a bit of a surprise, and clearly when you see something that you are not expecting, you pay a lot of attention. So that was the first thing. The second thing is what we are seeing with the drilling is a good, if you want, it seems to be suggesting, right, that what we are expecting to see from surface is somewhat confirmed. And there's also the fact that the system seems to be really open as we move down deep, so at depth, and also further to the west. So when you start putting these two things together, you think, well, maybe we should really be pushing it. And you know, we'll update the market when some additional information will be available. But we're actually spending a lot of time trying to work out the geology and the details of the alteration. We're actually probably about to hire a TerraSpec again, which is an instrument designed to give us more information about the alteration and hopefully guide us in vectoring towards the other part of the system. So in a nutshell, that's really why, because we're excited. We really like what we're seeing.
Thanks, Fabio. And just still on that then, so how deep are we drilling?
So I mentioned we have drilled some of the deepest hole in the Oracle Ridge area. I think the deepest we have done was about 650 meters. And clearly, we're in Arizona. Tim mentioned it's elephant country. When you see alteration systems, you don't want to be shy with the drilling. And we've actually liaised with the drillers so that we're ready for that. If we need to drill deeper, we have all the tooling that is required on site now. So we're ready if we have to.
Okay, and just another one. So timing on getting the first 3 holes back for Golden.
Okay, I can provide some context. I think Tim touched on it briefly. Now, with Golden Eagle, we had an issue essentially with the lab because we started sending the pallets with the core on top. I think it was probably the second week of July,
And because the labs are so busy, the core continued piling up in the lab yard without really being able to be processed. So what we had to do, we had to physically take the core from that specific lab and send it to a different lab. And basically, we just did that in the last week or so. So I'd say we're probably looking maybe 4 to 6 weeks from now, Tim.
Yeah, sounds like it's going to be in that order. We'd like it to be a whole lot faster, but look, it is what it is. The labs we found can be quite variable. The assay time doesn't take too long. Part of the problem has been the cutting. So once we get this core, the core saw, that's going to certainly speed that up. You should be able to cut a hole, depending on how much you're doing of it, but in 1 to 3 days, depending. So that should get a whole lot faster. We've had some assays come back in 2 weeks. They seem to be more like sort of 4 weeks at the moment. I think a lot of people have found in the industry generally they've been really, really long. We still pay double to get them expedited so we can get them through as fast as we can. So we're doing everything I think we're possible. We're now at 2 labs trying to deal with it. I get that investors are frustrated. We're frustrated. We're doing everything we can to try and get them through. As I say, we're 18 holes in the lab now. It's certainly starting to build up. But that rig came on in July, so it takes a while for to drill the holes. You got to log it, then you get to the lab, and then you're waiting that time to get it cut and then sampled as well. So that's why we're mid to late August, and we still haven't had some of those results that have come through, which started drilling in mid-July with that third rig.
So just another one as well. So these 2 new systems at Golden Eagle have the potential to dramatically alter the scope of any future mining operations. Tim, so what does this mean, and can you expand on this for us?
Yeah, so that was a comment which I made in the recent announcement. We're trying to grow our resource. We see that we need more resource, but we also see, there's that potential for that potential step change. If we can add on another ore source onto what we've already got, that has potential to significantly change, future economics of a mining study. So that's really important. If it is a really big system, it could be a standalone. It could be big enough, and completely dwarf, possibly. We just don't know that yet. But, we're getting great ingredients for something. If there is a system there which is mineralised, this is what we need. This is what we want. We want to try and add on. We want to build our resources up. So that's the potential to be able to have a big change to a future mining operation. Full disclaimer, we haven't done studies or anything, and at Golden Eagle, we haven't found that big resource or system yet. So just make sure people are clear on that.
And so just to you again, Tim, so are you considering any other claims in the area?
Look, I think investors would probably want me to be pretty cautious on how much I say on that front. But look, we've got a pretty big team, because we're going to make sure if there is claims there that we've got that first mover advantage. So I probably don't want to reveal too much what's going on there. But look, we've got a big team. As you can kind of work out, hopefully, that we are having a bit of a scout around and understand what is around, and using the magnetics, doing the guys out in the field having a bit of a look. And the other thing to point out, which I don't know if people kind of picked on, there's a bunch of old workings in the area, and around Golden Eagle, mostly gold, some copper, but there is that, and they're really good indicators that you're in another part of a system too. So look, if we see something, we'll go put our foot on it, for sure, if it's available.
Another webinar attendee has just asked, so how is the updated MRE progressing? Is there any time frame for delivery?
Yeah, look, so the MRE is going to be really dependent on results. So we haven't put a time frame out for when that's going to be due. What we're focusing at the moment is drilling, getting more drill hits, and expanding the existing resource at Golden Eagle, at the mine at Oracle Ridge. So we've got 2 rigs still focused there. That's our real priority, but we've got this other rig which will be doing some of these other holes, which are potential game changers if it happens to find something pretty material. So no, we don't have any timing on it. We certainly are working towards when that's going to be done, but it's really going to be results driven.
And so just on the core, so have we run any ERF over the core that we're still waiting for the assay labs for results from?
You mean XRF?
XRF, sorry, yes.
Well, of course, we use the XRF, and we sort of don't generally discuss and sort of make result public until the assets are available. So we'll keep that policy.
Just a funny one, Jane. I'll add to what Fabio just said with the XRF, because you get some structures and you can hit one point of the rock and it can hit a really high grade. You can go over a centimetre, be quite low. So try and understand that, and so you get that variability. So we'd rather wait for the assay results to come through before we report.
And sorry, Tim, it's also intrinsically less reliable. And the last thing we want to do is to present results that we're not fully comfortable about. So.
Of course. So a webinar attendee has asked, this is from the announcement. So Fabio, can you expand on this for us? So several faults occur in the area, including the regional significant Gesman fault, which represents a favourable plumbing system for mineralising fluids.
Yep. So essentially, when you want to create a mineral deposit, the mineral deposit is created by fluids that are depositing metal, right? So these fluids have to come from somewhere and need to be able to travel across the rocks, right? And generally, what happens is that traveling happens for many deposits along structures. So these are just think about them as weakness zones within the rocks that allow fluids to move around. And then if the conditions are favorable, these fluids that carry the metal deposit the metal in a specific location, and that's where you get the deposit. I touched on the comparison with the Eastern Gulf because it's striking. I mean, correlation with existing known large regional structures and also secondary structures as well is quite striking. So and what people don't realize that even big porphyry system, for example, are structurally controlled. So there is a control that is actually imposed by the framework, the architecture of the rocks, and fractures, structures, and faults are weakness zone, and that's sometimes where even big porphyries come through.
Perfect. And just one for the non-geos out there, can you explain why you're so excited about yesterday's results?
For the non-geos, so is that for you, Tim? No, I'm joking. I mean, personally, I'm excited because it's a new system. Actually, these are two new systems that we were not expecting, and that's where you really need to pay attention, because one of the reasons I think these were overlooked previously was because people were just focusing on the Oracle Ridge mine itself and maybe the Sanderson mine without really looking at the general alteration. So it's something new, is large, and as few key ingredients that could be really good, really interesting to make a good mineral deposit here. So we need to chase it.
And just one to Oracle Ridge now. So when can we expect drilling results from Oracle Ridge and Talon?
We'll probably answer that one. Yeah, so we've had holes in the lab now. We're waiting on 18 holes at the moment. Some of those were submitted quite some time ago. So look, I would be expecting some results fairly soon on that front. Be pretty disappointed if they were any longer. Yeah.
Okay, there is one as well that's come through, which we might not be able to answer, but on the condition that all the stars align and you will start mining, in which year do you think that's going to be?
Oh, look, you've got to go through the process. What are some of the hurdles might be leading up to what that mining operation would need to be? So we've got to define the resource. You've got to drill it, make sure you've got enough. So, if you find a big system, that can take a while to drill out, that's for sure. You've got to get your studies around it. There'll be the new mill. So the old mill was taken away. So you have to build a new mill. Procurement for a new mill could certainly be, in the order of a year, depending on the scale and the size. There's permitting requirements as well. So look, it's certainly a few years away if it's a big system. But on the same front, if you want to try and get going something pretty quickly, there's that option. Could you toll treat your product at a nearby concentrator, of which there are. Then you've done it for about tailings and other aspects as well. So your permitting is a whole lot simpler too. It really depends is probably the answer. Got to see where the copper price ends up. Obviously, copper's still really good, and there's the world's screaming out for more copper too. So I think copper's got a pretty bright future too, and that really helps then supporting what your mining studies and your mining operation is going to look like.
So there's another question that's come through. It appeared from the presentation that most of the magnetic high indications seem to travel through the Pima County controlled area. Is gaining mining approval from Pima County a priority? I know you have answered this one already, but.
Yeah, I think what I can say is that feature seemed to be dipping, so at depth is actually moving to the southwest and into our ground, and that's what we're targeting with the drilling.
Wonderful. Well, it looks like we've answered all the questions. And if we have missed anything, please feel free to reach out via the contact details on the bottom of our ASX releases. But I thank you all for your time today.
Thanks very much, Jane. Thanks to all our shareholders. Really do appreciate your support.